So hello guys, and welcome to another discussion video, and today I wanted to talk about something that a lot of people might be wondering about Super Mario RPG, and that is the future of these characters and the original characters in this game. So, if you didn't know already, Super Mario RPG has kind of a weird thing with its ownership for its characters in the game. Like, a lot of the characters in the game, such as Geno, Mallow, and the Smithy Gang at least, seem to be owned by Square Enix, since the original game was developed by Square, and they also, created a lot of the characters for the game, so it kind of made sense that they would own some of the characters, but it also makes things really confusing, considering the fact that this is a Mario game within the Mario franchise, published by Nintendo, and it also kind of jump-started the Mario RPGs, led into the Paper Mario series and Mario and Luigi series. So these characters are tied with the Mario franchise, even though they are technically owned by Square Enix now. So it kind of creates a really weird situation. But with this remake, we finally got to see these characters in HD, finally, some new versions of them and everything. So, it kind of begs the question, how are they going to use these characters in the future? Is Square Enix finally going to sell these characters? Or give these characters to Nintendo if the remake sells well? Are they going to do some kind of shared ownership of these characters? Is Square Enix going to basically kind of lend the rights to these characters for Nintendo, but Nintendo either has to, kind of give credit to Square Enix in every game that they're used in, or kind of give them a portion of the earnings of the games that they're in? Who knows? It's just really weird. If this remake sells well, I really hope these characters get to see kind of more game appearances and everything, because I feel like that's a huge waste. Kind of bringing these characters back, bringing this remake back, giving a spotlight to these characters, and just abandoning them after this. That would just be, a huge missed potential. So, I really hope they utilize these characters more, but there's a few things to kind of consider here when looking at that. Even though it kind of is established that some of the characters are owned by Square Enix, we don't really know if all of the characters are. We do know at least that Geno is, and it's kind of implied that the completely original characters in this game are, but a large portion of the characters in Mario RPG are actually modified versions of Nintendo characters. Yoshi, for instance, as well as all of the modified Toads and things like that. And there's also many modified versions of the enemies as well. So it's kind of interesting when you look at it like that. Are these characters fully owned by either Nintendo or Square Enix? Is there some kind of shared ownership going on? It's just really weird, because I don't think Square Enix would be able to use a character like Yoshi or any of the palette swaps of the enemies that they created for Mario RPG, because they are clearly based on Nintendo characters, and Nintendo would definitely have a problem with that if they use those characters in other games without Nintendo's permission. So I do think there is some kind of agreement with Nintendo for kind of only using these characters in Nintendo games, including either the modified versions of Mario characters, as well as the completely original characters like Geno and Mallow, because Geno and Mallow have never been used in anything other than Nintendo games. Geno appeared in Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, as well as a Mii Fighter costume in Smash games. So Geno really hasn't appeared outside of any Nintendo games. I mean, there was Tetris 99, but I think that's also published by Nintendo as well. So, yeah, Geno has really only appeared in Nintendo's own games, and I mean, there is the argument that even though Square Enix owns them, they have no reason to use them outside of Nintendo games. But they could easily do stuff like merch for Geno, or have a reference or Easter egg to Geno in another game, or have Geno be like an unlockable character in some game. But no! Geno is only in Nintendo games. Like, all of these characters are only limited to Nintendo games. So there has to be some kind of agreement between Square Enix and Nintendo to only use these characters in Nintendo games. Like, even though if they're owned by Square Enix, there is some kind of, like, restriction behind that. So I do feel like, if that's the case, I feel like that does kind of increase their chances of being in more, like, Mario games and everything. Like, if they are designed and agreed to only be used in Mario games or Nintendo games, like, I think that would definitely make sense to include them in more Mario games in the future, but we really don't know if that's the case or not. That's just kind of my theory, because, I feel like Square Enix would have done something. They would have done something with these characters. I mean, even though it's attached to the Super Mario RPG name, they could have done, they could have made merch of Geno. Like, they could have done something like that, but it really seems like there technically is some connection between these characters in, like, having some kind of a agreement with Nintendo. And then there's also the cases of Nintendo using the characters in these games without any credit of Square. Because technically, like, Mega Smilax is an original character for the game. I mean, it is a modified version of Piranha Plant and the Naval Piranha, but it still technically is a named character in this game that got a reference. So, Nintendo seems to actually own some of the characters in this game. Like, since Mega Smilax was referenced in the Minecraft Mario Mashup Pack, which means that Nintendo would have had to give Mojang and Microsoft the permission to use Mega Smilax. I mean, and there's, like, no... I don't think there's any, like, credit for, Square Enix in that, like, mashup pack and everything. So, it seems like Nintendo has full ownership over that character. And I think it was also referenced in, the Palutena's, guidance in Smash Ultimate as well. And I don't think that was really... I know Square Enix technically, like, has characters in the game and everything, but I don't think that was connected to it at all, since it's kind of fully separated from anything related to, like Cloud, who is the character already in the game at that point when Piranha Plant was added. So, I don't know. I think Nintendo has full ownership of, like, characters like Mega Smilax. Boshi? It's kind of weird to say, because, I mean, Boshi is clearly based on, like, Boshi is a member of the Yoshi species, which Nintendo has the ownership of, obviously. So, I don't think Square Enix would own Boshi, unless there's some kind of shared ownership between, like, Square Enix and Nintendo, since they technically designed Boshi, but Nintendo owns the rights to Yoshi. So, it might be, like, a shared ownership thing, or maybe Nintendo does have full ownership of it, like Mega Smilax. But it's kind of weird to say. And then there's also characters like the Chancellor that was referenced in Paper Mario with the Toad Minister, who's clearly a very similar, if not the same character, in Paper Mario. So even though it has a slightly different design, it's kind of implied to be the same character. So it's kind of weird. And then there's also the Shamans as well, which appear in Mario RPG and then are referenced in Paper Mario through the characters that are clearly based on it. So, yeah, and then there's also, like, other characters from the Paper Mario series that are kind of, like, inspired by it, like the Thropers, originally called Muku Mukus. I think they were referenced in, like, Thousand Year Door with the Ratui characters. So there's a lot of instances in Paper Mario. Like, Paper Mario 64 in general took a lot from Super Mario RPG. So, I mean, because that was originally meant to be the sequel to Super Mario RPG. So yeah, it's weird to say, like, where things stand with the ownership of the characters in this game. Like, kind of looking at the characters other than, like, Geno and Mallow and everything. But yeah, we'll have to see I really hope these characters will be used more in the future. Like, even if some of them are owned by Square Enix, I don't think it's that hard for Nintendo to get the rights to use these characters in other games. Like, Mario Kart already has the Mii outfits for, like, Sonic, as well as, like, Pac-Man and Mega Man. So, I don't think it would be that hard to get the rights to use these characters. I feel like Square Enix is pretty lenient with Nintendo, like, using these characters or getting the rights to these characters. I honestly feel like they don't really care that much about Nintendo using these characters. I think it's a matter of Nintendo caring about using these characters. Because it seems like over the past, like, decade and a half, they really didn't care to use, like, much things from the RPGs that much. So I think it really is just a matter of Nintendo caring or not to use these characters. And now, since we're kind of going into the new era of Mario, or as I would like to dub, the Wonder era of Mario, because of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and that game kind of signifying how creative and interesting things are getting for the franchise. Like, I feel like it's more likely now, like, now that things are kind of getting more interesting, now that Nintendo is putting a bigger spotlight on the RPGs, I really hope that these characters can appear. Like, Geno and Mallow in Mario Kart would be amazing. Of course, Geno and Smash would be cool as well. Maybe even, like, Mario Party in the sports games. I know that's even less likely, but, like, they could expand the rosters to those as well to kind of include the extended Mario universe in general, including Super Mario RPG, as well as the other Mario RPGs. And then, like, obviously, with another game that could utilize these characters, a direct sequel to Super Mario RPG, which I think is very likely if this remake does well. So I feel like there is definitely a better chance of these characters being included in more games. Like, there was so much effort put into this remake, and the remake seems to be selling well. So I just really hope that these characters are utilized more now that this remake is here. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.